Hi, this is Janet Neal with The Superbwoman. Welcome to Superbwoman Sundays at 7. I'm so glad that you joined us. And I'm so excited to have my friend Susan Barrett Merrill as my guest tonight. Susan is a person of many, many talents, as you'll soon see. But before we get to Susan, let me tell you a little bit about The Superbwoman. For those of you who have not heard this before, let me tell you how it started. It started with my belief that women can change this world and that so many of us don't realize that we have the power to do so. I stopped and thought about what I could do to make a difference in the world, and I realized that I could help women to realize their power by helping them, instead of being a superwoman, which I certainly was myself, which is all about do, to take that step back to be yourself, to understand who you are, to take the time to understand yourself, your values, what your talents are, what your strengths are, what you like to do, to be, and then go do. So it's all about the be. So instead of being a superwoman, become a superb woman, which I believe all of us are. So the things that the Superbwoman does is we do coaching one-on-one, we do training, and I do speaking engagements around my book, which is called Soul in Control, Reflections of a Reformed Superwoman. And I want to introduce other women to the amazing women that I have met on my path. I do a lot of networking, I go to a lot of events, and I meet these women, and I would come back and tell my friends about, wow, you wouldn't believe who I met today. And I realized that everyone needs to meet these women. Women have wonderful stories. These are women just like you and me that followed their passion, that took that time to step back to understand what's important to them. And then they stepped into their power, and they're putting it out there for the betterment of all. So today's guest certainly exemplifies that. Susan Barrett Merrill and I met when we were in coaching school together a few years ago, both of us training to become coaches. And Susan has had a varied paths. She's a teacher, an educator, a coach, and she is an artist. She is one of a world-renowned fiber artist, and I'll show you a few of her creations in a little bit. But what I want Susan to share with us today is how she got to where she is today, and tell us about not only her artwork, which is amazing, but her coaching that she does with women, and her Earthloom Foundation, which is all about bringing peace into the world. And I'll read you just a little bit about what Susan said about herself. She said, "My mission is to teach women to realize their own value and to guide them in providing vision and direction for themselves through a creative process of elemental weaving. Weaving is a hands-on way to integrate our inner and outer lives. You can't fight for peace in the world. You have to weave peace in yourself and in your world." Beautifully said. Welcome, Susan.
Hello, Janet. Thank you so much for inviting me here tonight.
Oh, I'm so happy to have you. And Susan, tell us where you are. It looks like a very cool place where you're sitting.
I am in the state of Maine in the United States, and I'm on the coast near the ocean. And this is one of the looms that I make that's behind me using beaver sticks that I find on the beach. And I put them together and make looms and weave on them.
So tell me, that's beautiful. So tell me how you actually got started weaving. How did that come about?
I began weaving as a young girl. I used to go to the beach and collect sticks on the beach. And I would put them together and use the flotsam and the netting and the seaweed and make these very primitive looms and then send them out to sea as a gift to the sea.
Oh, that's so beautiful.
So I've been weaving for many years, and my ancestors, I think actually all our ancestors were weavers.
That's very true. So how did that lead to where you are today?
Well, I actually grew up in a very spiritual family, and as soon as I became a weaver, which I realized was really my vocation. I have had many vocations, but weaving has been at the heart of them all. And so I have been teaching weaving and teaching art and doing my own weaving, especially the masks that I make. I'm a mask weaver, and that came to me in a dream where I was given a mask in a dream and shown how to weave it and discovered that they're completely unique in the world. So that's been a very interesting passion to follow since then.
And when was that? When did you have that dream? That's really fascinating. We've known each other for a while. I've never heard that part of your story.
Well, the dream came on August 13th in 1999, so it is fairly recent. I had been weaving already for about 20 years, and at the end of a rug warp that I had on my loom, I thought, well, I better try this and see if it works. And the first mask, though, was so dramatic, I thought, I have to keep doing this. So later, 100 masks later, I'm still having a wonderful time doing it.
Wow. And I happen to have a picture here. Let's see if that shows up well. A couple of Susan's masks. Susan, what are these? These are called Travelers?
Yes. This year, the current series that I'm doing are series of 3 masks, so they're triptych, of people traveling in different parts of the world on the heads of the masks. And the masks have actually come to represent the face of the earth and all of the activities that we do on the head of the earth. Wow. So it's very interesting to see the personas that come out when you're thinking about the earth. And I use wool from sheep that I help to shear on an island off of the coast of Maine. And then I do all of my own dyeing with plants in my garden and in the fields around me in Maine. So completely organic and a lot of fun to do. They're very wild.
Wow. And these masks, I mean, they're just spectacular. And these masks, they're in a permanent collection in a museum in Italy, correct?
Yes. I was invited to have some masks there in a competition, and the museum decided to include them in their collection.
That's fabulous. And you also sell them to private collectors as well?
Yes. Many people collect the masks.
Wow.
So this is the art that I do, but I also developed a company called Weaving a Life, and that company is using weaving on a very simple loom, a lot like this loom, and we manufacture them, and it's on the website weavingalife.com. I work with women to help them develop self-esteem and to discover their values and to really begin to gain the skills to create inner peace. And so many of the women I work with are in the second half of life saying, I need new skills. The same skills I had in the first half of life aren't working now. And so that's primarily the group of people that I'm working with. And I train women to lead others in the Weaving a Life process.
So tell me more about that. So what is that about?
I wrote a book called Zati, The Art of Weaving a Life, and it started with a mask. I thought, why am I weaving these masks? And I realized that the masks were about identity. And I thought about the process of finding our identities. How do we feel good about ourselves beyond the persona of our masks? What is it that gives us that inner sense of joy and truth about this is who I really am?
So take me through how you actually teach women how to do this, because you don't do it all in person, right?
That's right. I actually teach on the telephone, and I will person will call me and say, I want to take your class, or email me, and we talk about their needs because it's combining coaching with weaving. I find that when you have something tactile to do and you can put your hands on it and create something that you actually hold as you call in something new to your life, you have it there always to remind you, and you can use it as a tool. Weaving is very simple. Everybody can weave. Weaving is the simplest of all arts. You know, you can weave on anything, a book, or I just put sticks together and weave. It's vertical threads. I see the loom as our body, and that the vertical threads, which are the warp in weaving, are our values. They're our inner life. It's what we believe. The weft, the horizontal threads, are our actions. And when you combine and interweave your values with your actions, you see the fabric of your life right before you. So we talk about what color your values, and we do a life review to really find what your values are. And then as you're weaving, we're weaving the color of what you're calling in. And that's the first, what I call key form that you weave, which is a little tiny amulet. The second key form, there are 7. The second one is a bowl, and it's about birth. It's about really examining what you believe about yourself. So we're combining the metaphysics of your life with something that's tactile. So it's combining left brain, right brain information all the time. And you end up with a collection of beautiful sacred objects that are sacred to you because they're about changing your own life in the direction that you want to go.
So really, you are helping. You're a really good example to me of a superb woman, somebody who's taken the time to understand what's important to her, what her values are, and skills, and then putting that back out there for the betterment of all. And you really are helping these other women to become their own superb woman.
Yes, exactly. That's I find that that's what gives me personally the most satisfaction, is watching a person recognize their value.
Yeah, there's nothing
and yes, that's it. It's so exciting because we all are incredibly valuable. We often can't find it ourselves and need, you know, a reflection, someone to reflect back to us. Look at you. Look at what you can do, and here are your skills. You know, we're combining your talents and skills with what you want to give back to the world, and that's your vocation.
Yeah, and it's so powerful when that happens, and it just, that powerful energy that you put out there when you're aligned like that, it just draws other people to you as well, and it just creates more positive energy. So it's great. I just have a picture here I wanted to share. This is a picture of one of the looms, a woman, beautiful picture at sunset, weaving on one of the looms. And this is the kind of loom that you use in your teaching, right?
Yes, this is the small personal loom, and it's called the Journey Earthloom. And it sits in your lap. You can take it wherever you go. You can weave on the plane, in the car, in the passenger seat. You can, I often take it out by the ocean on the beach, and you sit in just a little sports chair, or you make yourself comfortable with it. You can weave in bed. I love that it's a very personal, simple loom, and that you can weave these 7 interesting things that everybody can do. It gives you this new skill with your hands. I am a believer that if you connect your hands with your heart and your mind, that something new happens.
Yeah, so you're really...
So that's the Journey loom. We also make bigger looms too.
Yes, and I want to get to that in 1 second. So what you're talking about then is really the whole mind, body, spirit, and you're really helping to facilitate the body part of it by using your fingers.
Exactly.
That's excellent.
That's exactly what it is that you really make the connection with all your cells, you know, not just thinking about it, because often what we think about, we forget in a few minutes. But when we can actually hold it, touch it, look at it, we remember it.
That's very true. Yeah, very true. Especially, well, I can speak for personal experience. As you get older, that would be more helpful.
It's true.
Yeah. So let's talk about that bigger loom, because I fortunately have been around long enough to in your life to know about when this whole thing started, and it's been so exciting setting up your Earthloom Foundation. Here's a picture of the Earthloom, so it's much bigger, as you see, and it's bringing a community together. So Susan, tell us more about your Earthloom and the Earthloom Foundation.
Okay, my husband and I decided that the the loom, the personal loom, was really about designing and developing your inner life, and it's about understanding that until we have inner peace and the skills to create that for ourselves, we can't create peace in the world. So by beginning by learning these personal skills, we can then take it into our community. And so we started a foundation called the Earthloom Foundation. We use garden looms, which get planted in gardens, story looms, which are portable, can go inside, outside. They're about 6 feet tall and 3 feet wide, those two looms. And they're in hospital gardens. We use them at memorial services, in all kinds of celebrations. It's about gathering a community together. You can weave on both sides of this loom, and it's an amazing experience when you weave for someone else. So you learn how to use those skills of peace to create community. And you teach community by all working together and seeing what it looks like with each person's differences woven together. And you see the cloth and touch it, and you're bringing it to someone else in your community who needs to know that their community loves them. And it's been so powerful a thing to do that we started a foundation to create Earthloom projects around the world.
I just get goosebumps when you talk about it. It's just such a beautiful, beautiful message and metaphor, the way that you bring that. So tell us more about some of the kinds of examples of where, in particular, these Earthlooms have been used.
Well, for example, we had a memorial service for a teacher whose husband ran a private high school. And there were 25 kids in the high school. They came to the memorial service and were really at odds. They weren't sure what to do, how they fit in there at the service. But we had an Earthloom there, and they all gathered around the Earthloom, and they made a beautiful weaving for this man whose wife had recently died, and they wanted to tell him how much they loved him. So they wrote in prayers and testimonials, and other people brought scraps of fabric that his wife had taught them how to make pajamas, and wove together this beautiful weaving with lots of prayers and messages in it, and then gave it to the husband and the family at the end of the service. And that's the kind of thing that becomes so meaningful, where a community can do something in a place where they didn't believe they could.
Oh, that's just beautiful, just beautiful. And what about, so that's one kind of healing. I know that you talked about, and I think you were involved in some sort of a seminar talking about healing and art in weaving, maybe in particular.
Yes, I just recently worked with women who had had ovarian cancer, and they were survivors and wanted to get together and celebrate that survival. And we just recently had an Earthloom project at that retreat. I just finished working at a spiritual retreat where we did a weaving for the retreat. There was a wonderful story about a family who had gotten together for a family reunion. And one of the leaders that was trained to be a Weaving a Life Earthloom leader was there. They were going to have a bonfire. 100 people gathered in this field, but the bonfire had been burned. And so she said, let's build an Earthloom. They all went out in the woods, gathered the wood. The women went shopping. They got material, got the sewing machines out. It created the most wonderful community building for that family They actually celebrated a 50th wedding anniversary in it, an engagement party, everything. It was a beautiful weaving. The whole group had fun all weekend, and then they had to move the loom because it was a hay field. And so the husband of this woman, his mother had recently died. She was buried out on the hill. They all took the loom on the back of a truck up to her burial site and actually replanted it there and said, Mom would have loved this. Oh. So they had a way to honor his mother, and every year now they gather to do a new weaving for her.
Oh, more goosebumps. That is just such a neat story. Oh, it's beautiful. Susan, you're just doing beautiful work. So tell me, I know that, I say this every time, but, we don't do this in a vacuum. We can't do this by ourselves. Who's helped you on your path?
Well, there are many people who have helped me on my path, but I think I have a spiritual teacher. I find that grounds me and gives me a way to really stay connected to spirit all the time, every day.
And have you are a person who is very grounded now. Have you always been that way, or was there something that happened that was a turning point for you that you kind of started to feel more comfortable in your own skin?
Yes, there really, I grew up as a person who was very ambidextrous, which sounds like it could be a good thing, but for me, it made it very hard to follow anybody or any rules, any shoulds. I would look at recipes and, things I was presented with in class and go, this makes no sense to me. So being slightly dyslexic and, I learned early that I had to be really creative in order to be comfortable. And I finally gave up trying to be right or follow what the person was doing. I finally realized, okay, I'm going to just make up my own life. And so that's what I've done ever since. And it's really helped a lot. Let go of having to do my life the way I see other people doing theirs.
I can imagine that there must have been a lot of conflict before you got to that point.
Absolutely. I think, why can't I do these things that other people are doing? And that was a lot of shoulds. I should be able to do this. But when I finally realized that I was free, I was really free to say, all right, I'm going to make this recipe my own way, or I'm going to weave like this, instead of following this pattern. And that's been so helpful. It's so freeing for women to really trust their own life, their own mix of talents and skills. And if you look closely, you have your own configuration of skills that add up to what you'd like to be doing.
Absolutely, absolutely. So you mentioned the shoulds. So share with us a few shoulds that you have learned to let go in your lifetime.
Well, I think, the biggest one is really thinking that I should be like everyone else and look like everyone else. Or, it's so great to realize that you're actually completely free to express yourself in your own unique way, that no one else can be like you. And so for me, that was really helpful to realize that I could express myself and imagine what I could do, that I could just use my imagination to think of how to do art or what I'd like it to look like instead of what it should be looking like, or what, and I think art especially is you have to really drop the shoulds.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And I think you're a great example of the freedom that you get from releasing those shoulds, from releasing that that preconceived expectation that you should act some way, it should turn out this way, that you are releasing that, and I loved what you said, that you are free to do whatever you want to do, and that nobody else can do what you can do.
That's right. Each person, and I think that's what art really is. It's your personal expression of how you see that thing.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. So what's next? Tell us what's next for you.
Well, it's interesting to think about what's next. I think about expanding my business, Weaving a Life, into a wholesale business where across the country you can buy all the products that we make. Right now you can only buy them on our website. Also thinking about how to really, where to go with my art. What would I like to do with it? Where would I like it to go? And so I think marketing and designing your own business, you really have to play with what would be fun for me. How would I like to develop this? So I think I'm still looking at it. I'm not sure.
Yeah, and I think that's interesting what you say. I think there are at least two different sides to it. One being the business side, put on your business hat and look at it from that perspective. But the other one, which I think is equally as important, is what do you have fun doing? What is it that you want to do? So I encourage the viewers out there to ask yourself, both tough questions. Not only the business side of things, but also the joyful side of things. And you're going to be doing an artist in residency, correct?
Yes. There is a land conservation in Florida that's invited us to do a 6-week residency where we're going to be really working with things on the land there and doing Earthloom projects with the community and having an exhibit. And my husband does beautiful bird kites and puppets. So I think it will be a fun connection. I also want to say that the Earthloom has a lot of potential for world projects to help. There's a student who lives in Peru who wants to work with orphans, women who are 16. They're girls who are 16 who have to leave the orphanage and don't have the skills to support themselves yet. So she's been given a house by the government in Peru, in Lima, and another one in Cusco, and wants these girls to learn Weaving a Life, to build self-esteem for themselves, and then to turn around and teach it to American students as a language exchange and skill exchange, so that they have the skills to pass forward and that they have a way to earn a living. It's sort of a great idea of a way to use both the Journey Earthlooms and the larger story and garden looms. So I'm excited for the potential of what the Earthloom Foundation can do.
Oh, I think it's wonderful. I think I think that there's opportunity out there that you haven't even, I think you've just scratched the surface on it. So I wish you all the best with it. So we've run out of time, so I just want to say thank you so much to my friend Susan Barrett Merrill for joining us today. Thanks, Susan.
Thank you, Janet. It's been a pleasure and an honor.
Thanks. And at the end of this, you'll see a slide that has all the information on how to learn more about the Earthloom, the Weaving a Life, and more about Susan's masks and her fiber artwork. So thank you again for joining us this week on Superbwoman Sundays at 7. Next Sunday is going to be our last one for a couple of months, and my guest is Selena I'm going to say her name wrong, but it's Maitreya, I believe. Selena has a company called Practical Spirituality, and she has just an amazing story of something that's happened to her that literally changed her life and brought her to where she is today. I know you really enjoy it. So have a wonderful week, and we'll see you next week at Superbwoman Sundays at 7. Thanks.